have had a lot of clients come to me with the phrase donor advised fund,
Right.
and that's sort of all they know.
Yes,
But,
exactly.
they've heard about it in their colleagues or in the, tech industry media of some sort, and it's hot and it's sexy and it's what rich people do. Um, what is it?
Yeah.
And functionally, it is just an easier way to implement tax efficient charitable giving. That's
Yeah.
how I think of the donor advised fund.
No, that's exactly what it is. But and when you kind of said it's what the rich people do,
Yeah.
and I put in
Finger
quotes the
quotes.
rich
Yeah.
people, but like before donor advised funds, if you wanted to give in a very streamlined way as a family, you had to set up this thing called a family foundation, where you basically created this 501(c)(3) to put money in, to give money away, and you had to have your tax return done and all these things, all these like really, really big, complex
Yeah,
systems
and
needed to
expensive
exist
to implement.
to do that. And then along the way, donor advised funds were created. And donor advised funds are essentially the same thing, just a much simpler version.
Mhm.
And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yes. And I used to poo-poo donor advised funds. I think
Really?
yes, I have been converted. Uh, but I think largely because you might remember a few years ago, there was an article, and I don't know whether it's in tech industry media or is just, mainstream media like the New York Times about the tech industry, but that donor advised funds were so popular among all these incredibly wealthy people in tech. So they shoveled all this money into these donor advised funds and then never gave any of it to charity.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
So, and it was a very popular article. I wish I could remember even the publication, let alone the title of the article. Um, but that's what made me so negative about it for so
Hmm.
long, because the whole point of giving to charity is to actually give to charity.
Right. So in your
To
view, they were giving for a tax benefit, not for a like a more altruistic or a
not
charitable
to actually help
benefit.
organizations, causes, people
Yeah.
who deserve their help. Yeah.
Yeah. But we'll
But I
talk
have
about planning, because
mhm,
you
mhm,
should plan on how you're going to give. Hmm.
yes. So let's talk about the way that people normally give to charity.
Yeah.
For example,
Normally they just use a check or a credit card. Well, I should say check. They give cash.
haha, yes.
They almost always give a credit card. It basically out of your own cash flow comes cash through either a credit card payment or something, and you just give to charity.
Right, and you
Yeah.
set it up and, it's got the merit of credit cards. You can set up the recurring monthly payment. You set it up once, you never have to think about it again.
Hmm.
Great, without making an effort, you're continually giving to causes that you care about, and there
Yeah.
is real merit in that approach. Again, if the overriding purpose is to get money to causes you care about, that accomplishes that very easily. Alright, so that's
I
the
s-
norm. Yeah.
we and oh, just to be clear, like one of the things
Yes.
that we'll look at is we'll just look at like your tax return, and we'll just look for those itemized expenses and see like, are you giving consistently over the years? And if you are, how much are you giving? And that's one of the markers of like, does a donor advised fund make sense for you, or could it? And one of the questions to start with is like, do you give to begin with? Because to your point, Meg, you made earlier, if you're just doing it for a tax reason and you're not trying to give, it's not going to be that beneficial for you in the end.
Right. You give away a dollar to get a 40% tax deduction, you're still out 60 cents. So,
Exactly.
since we've just sort of established what the average way is of giving to charity, and a donor advised fund is more complicated. It requires more effort to set this up than just setting up a recurring monthly credit card donation.
Yeah.
So, I would love to talk about when donor advised funds are particularly helpful, when it would actually be worth your while to go to the extra effort of setting it up instead of just sticking with your, 15 monthly credit card recurring donations.
Yeah, and let's just look at it from a really simple standpoint too, right? So the money that you're giving, the money that you're giving through your credit card bills, credit card statement, you're just using after tax money to make a contribution to a charity, which is really nice. And if you're in a certain tax brackets, or pardon me, I shouldn't say tax brackets, but if you have if you itemize your deductions, that charitable contribution is going to be a bit of a write-off. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes,
Yep.
if you itemize your
If you
deductions.
itemize your deductions. If you don't itemize your deductions, it's not actually a tax benefit that those
Right.
folks in Silicon Valley are trying to get.